My name is Karla Lemus Gordillo, and I'm an Education Outreach and Associate at the Center for Education Engagement and Evaluation. I have worked with various cohorts of student researchers through two undergraduate research programs. I have helped develop team building activities, professional development opportunities, and given various workshops to students during their time in these programs. In addition to this, I have also participated in the Research Experience for Community College Students, or REX, an experience that truly changed the trajectory of my career. In this video, you will learn how to provide coaching and feedback, how to establish and communicate norms, and how to set up clear structures that contribute to an inclusive environment. An inclusive mentoring environment is built through intentional communication, shared expectations, collaborative problem solving, and mutual respect. The practices described here promote inclusion by recognizing mentees as active participants in the mentoring relationship rather than passive recipients of advice. Using open-ended, clarifying, and reflective questions encourages mentees to share their perspectives, experiences, and concerns, while structured feedback approaches such as the situation behavior impact model help maintain psychological safety and reduce judgment or bias. Establishing mentorship norms, agreements, and work plans creates transparency around expectations and helps make the hidden curriculum of research and professional culture more visible and accessible. Regular check-ins, opportunities for reciprocal feedback, flexibility in communication styles, and acknowledgement of personal and cultural differences further fosters trust, belonging, and accountability. Together, these strategies create a mentoring culture that supports growth, autonomy, and equitable participation for all mentees. Asking questions. Effective coaching begins with asking thoughtful questions that encourages mentees to reflect and describe their experiences in detail. Open-ended questions help mentees explore their thoughts, explain challenges, and provide important context, while clarifying questions ensure mutual understanding and helps organize ideas. Insightful or creative questions, such as "Have you considered?" or "What if?" encourage deeper thinking and help mentees explore new perspectives and possibilities. The pause challenge. Throughout the coaching conversation, pause to summarize what you have heard and encourage reflection before moving toward solutions. This reflective pause helps both mentor and mentee challenge assumptions, avoid jumping to conclusions, and consider whether there may be misperceptions or overlooked factors influencing the situation. By slowing down the conversation, you can create space for deeper understanding and more thoughtful responses. Identifying gaps. An important part of coaching is identifying missing information and clarifying the real issue. Mentors and mentees can reflect on questions such as, what facts or data do I have? What information is missing? And have I addressed the real issue? This process helps uncover gaps in understanding, distinguish facts from assumptions, and identify areas that require further exploration before moving forward. Support. Coaching support mentees by creating space for them to contribute ideas, reflect openly, and build confidence in their own abilities. Encouraging mentees to articulate their perspectives, brainstorm options, and define what success looks like for themselves promotes autonomy and empowers learning. Collaborative conversations and active listening helps mentees feel heard, respected, and supported throughout the process. Problem solving. Problem solving in coaching involves collaboratively exploring options and evaluating possible approaches. Mentors guide mentees through reflective and creative thinking rather than providing direct answers. By discussing different perspectives and possibilities, mentors help mentees think beyond obvious solutions, strengthen critical thinking skills, and develop confidence in navigating challenges independently. Discussing solutions. Once the problem has been clearly characterized, mentors and mentees work together to develop a plan for implementing solutions. Ideally, the mentee leaves a summary of action steps, milestones, and check-in points, reinforcing ownership and accountability. Regular follow-up conversations provide opportunities to assess progress, make adjustments, and celebrate successes and accomplishments along the way. Whether you're a mentor or mentee, it can be helpful to reflect using these prompts. What facts or data do I have? What's missing? Am I making assumptions or jumping to conclusions? Am I placing blame or taking responsibility? And have I identified the real issue? Think of a time when you received helpful constructive feedback and a time where the feedback felt more like a hurtful critique. What was different about how the feedback was delivered in each case? Giving and receiving feedback in mentorship. Giving and receiving feedback is essential for growth in research and professional settings. Mentors play a key role in supporting mentees by offering constructive, respectful, and clear feedback while also modeling openness to receive feedback themselves. Let's remember, however, that feedback in the research community can be harsh. Practice kindness when providing feedback or sharing information that may be challenging for your mentee to receive. Let's explore the strategies for structuring a feedback conversation. Giving feedback. Create a safe space. Start with appreciation to build trust. Use the Situation, Behavior, Impact, or SBI model. Situation. Describe the context. Be specific about when and where it occurred. Behavior. Describe the observable behavior. Don't assume you know what the other person was thinking. And impact. Explain the effect of the behavior, what you thought or felt in reaction to the behavior. An example of this can be, in our debrief, the situation, when you interrupted the behavior, it disrupted the discussion. Impact. Or you might want to say, when you do this behavior, that makes this impact. Another example could be, in our debrief session from the field day, giving the situation, when you interrupted others multiple times, the behavior, it disrupted the flow of the discussion, and some team members seemed hesitant to share their ideas, giving the impact. This model focuses on the behavior and impact without assuming reasons or making judgments that can be wrong or hurtful, and will help your mentee understand your perspective. As you provide feedback, try to use descriptive language to explain your observations. For example, instead of saying you need to be more assertive, say, I noticed that you hesitated to speak up during the meeting. May I ask what held you back? When providing feedback, be specific and objective. Remember that feedback is about supporting growth, not criticism. Lead the conversation with positive intent and review the situation objectively. Ask yourself, what are the facts versus what are the stories I am telling myself or the assumptions I am making? Ask yourself if there is implicit bias in this feedback. Would I provide this feedback regardless of who it is? Keep feedback timely and constructive. Help mentees view feedback as a tool for development, not criticism. Remember to praise great work. And finally, encourage response. Once you have shared your observations, give your mentee time to respond and to listen to what they share. At the end of the discussion, encourage them to ask questions and clarify anything they don't understand or want to understand better. When receiving feedback, make sure to encourage your mentee to share feedback with you too, using the same SBI structure. Practice active listening. Focus fully, withhold defensiveness, and ask for clarification if needed. Ask questions like, could you give me an example of when this occurred? Or, I want to make sure I fully understand. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that? Acknowledge and appreciate feedback, even if it's difficult to hear. Try to avoid making generalizations, such as using words like always or never. Instead, focus on specific behaviors or actions that you have observed. Try to avoid giving vague feedback. Instead of saying your presentation was unclear, try, I noticed that some points in your presentation could be further clarified. For example, the justification for the sampling locations. Can we discuss how to make it more concise? Try to avoid imposing judgment or interpretation on others' actions. If your feedback is judgmental, it will likely make the receiving person defensive. For example, instead of saying this draft was really sloppy, try to say this draft has some strong ideas. Let's focus on improving the organization and clarity so your ideas come through more effectively. Or, instead of saying you just don't seem motivated, instead say, I've noticed it's been harder to stay engaged lately. How are things going, and what might help you reconnect with the project? Or, instead of saying you should already know how to do this, instead say this skill often takes practice to learn. Let's review it together and talk about resources that may help. Remember to focus the feedback on behavior or actions and not on individuals. And finally, try to avoid sarcasm or inappropriate humor, which can be damaging to the relationship. Instead of saying that graph is creative, say, this is a good start. Let's work on making the graph clearer and easier to interpret. Or instead of saying, did you actually test this before bringing it to me? Say, can you walk me through how you checked the results before sharing them? Constructive feedback that acknowledges strengths while identifying opportunities for continued development can also help hold mentees accountable. Other ways a mentor can hold a mentee accountable while still being supportive include establishing clear, ambitious expectations with your mentee while offering strong support to help mentees achieve them, maintaining regular follow-up through consistent check-ins on progress, challenges, and evolving needs, not just final outcomes. Promoting self-reflection by encouraging mentees to assess their growth, identify obstacles, and consider next steps. Approaching accountability as a form of support that promotes growth and success rather than punishment. Modeling dependability and follow-through to demonstrate professional responsibility and set expectations for the mentoring relationship. Recognizing and celebrating progress and accomplishments to reinforce motivation, confidence, and responsibility. Inviting mentees to restate goals, priorities, or action items to ensure shared understanding and clarity. And setting up more check-ins at the beginning and then less as the student grows more confident. Also, developing a plan for how you are going to make sure the student is on track even without a check-in. Next steps. Helping mentees reflect and define actionable steps, guiding them in breaking large goals into manageable milestones to build confidence, and recognizing progress and incremental. I'm going to start that over. Some next steps can be helping mentees reflect and define actionable steps, guiding them in breaking large goals into manageable milestones to build confidence, and recognizing progress and incremental improvement over time. Promoting a growth mindset. Mistakes are part of learning. Model curiosity, flexibility, and willingness to learn from failure. Praise effort, persistence, and improvement, not just outcomes. Support problem solving rather than immediately providing answers. Encourage experimentation and trying new approaches. Follow up regularly to support continued progress and show that feedback is an ongoing dialogue. Reinforce that confidence and expertise are built over time and help them reframe not good at this as still learning this. Revise expectations and mentor agreements after difficult conversations to prevent recurring issues. Navigating tough conversations is a natural part of mentorship. Using active listening, coaching questions, and structured feedback can make these moments productive and growth oriented. Mentorship norms and agreements. While difficult conversations can help mentees grow, many challenges can be prevented or navigated more effectively when mentors and mentees establish clear norms, expectations, and communication practices early in the relationship. Creating shared agreements helps build trust, reduce misunderstandings, and provides a foundation for addressing challenges constructively when they arise. Establishing norms and expectations early in the mentoring relationship promotes open communication, trust, and a positive dynamic. Norms should be customized and may include agreements on communication, feedback, meeting frequency, time boundaries, accessibility, and mentorship duration. A mentorship agreement formalizes these norms and serves as a reference point if challenges arise. It can be created or revisited at any point in the relationship. These are some examples of mentorship norms. When doing this, be intentional about making implicit expectations and norms explicit. Consider the hidden curriculum, what mentees may not yet understand about research culture, professional norms, communication styles, or expectations. Adapt communication approaches to individual comfort levels, set clear boundaries, and avoid assuming mentees already know how to navigate professional spaces. You can find a template with a list of potential norms in the planning section of this module to help you get started on identifying and describing the norms that work for your team. This slide shows some examples of mentorship norms, which could include maintaining regular and open communication, be responsive, communicate in advance about any changes or conflict, be an active listener, reserve judgment and consider differing perspectives, engage in constructive feedback with an open mind and provide timely feedback in a positive and supportive manner. Respect each other's perspectives, experiences, and boundaries, and recognize and appreciate cultural and personal differences. Maintain a professional demeanor in interactions, be punctual, and respect each other's time commitments. Be flexible, be open, and adaptable to changes in goals or circumstances. Address challenges openly and work together to find solution. Clearly communicate expectations for each other and use shared tools such as communication plans or mentor agreements. It can also be something simple such as a shared running notes document to support transparency, organization, and accountability. Presume good intent. Utilize the oops, ouch method for immediate feedback. What are some norms that have been helpful for you and your teammates in the past? What is one norm you hope to set with your mentee? The mentorship agreement. This can be a helpful way to capture and formalize these norms and expectations through a mentorship agreement. A mentoring agreement serves as a roadmap for the mentorship relationship. It outlines the norms and expectations of both the mentor and mentee. A mentorship agreement also establishes boundaries and is a guide to refer back to if challenges arise. You can find a template for a mentoring agreement in the planning section of the Introduction to Mentoring module. As part of this conversation, you may also want to discuss the goals and expectations for the mentoring relationship. Depending on the context, the mentee can share what they are hoping to achieve through their research, their degree program, or during a field campaign. Establish the specific goals for this mentorship relationship together, and recognize that those may be a mix of career goals, research goals, and personal goals. Also, discuss communication preferences, meeting schedules, and how feedback will be given and received. Accommodations can, of course, be discussed. Revisit expectations regularly as they evolve over time. As you work through these norms and expectations, remember that your relationship may have an inherent power dynamic, and given that mentees may not be comfortable responding honestly. For example, if you are discussing schedules, asking how late are you willing to work while in the field, could pressure mentees to suggest much longer workdays than they are actually comfortable with. So instead, ask the mentee to describe their ideal workday in the field. When they outline the workday, they are more likely to describe that the ideal workday ends at a certain number of hours of field work. The mentor can then also describe the needs of the research project. It might be that a field campaign requires 10-hour field days. Knowing the needs and preferences allows both sides to establish a plan that meets the project needs and also sets boundaries. Frame agreements as pathways to success and that they are living, evolving documents. Revisit them through the research experience. Build trust understanding before setting these work plans. This is another structural tool that can be used. Work plans can support inclusion by creating consistency and accountability for both mentors and mentees. They provide a shared reference point for next steps, progress, feedback, and adjustments when challenges arise. By revisiting and adapting the plan together over time, mentors can better accommodate different learning styles, backgrounds, comfort levels, and outside responsibilities while reinforcing that growth and development are expected parts of the research process. Work plans are important mentoring tools, especially for early career scientists. A work plan provides a helpful structure and is valuable in supporting the mentee, keeping in mind the big picture, focusing on the objectives of the research project, and defining realistic milestones to achieve the goals within the available time. A work plan with clear milestones is also a reality check of the feasibility of the timeline and allows for check in and reflection at critical points in the project and throughout the research experience. These check ins allow for course correction if needed and define the next steps. Work plans are not static, they are just roadmaps. Maintaining open communication and flexibility is important to adapt the milestones as necessary. During reflections and at milestone check ins, discuss what worked well and what could be improved. Remind your mentee that failures in research are part of the process and include space for challenges and failures. These reflections set the stage for continued growth and allow the mentor to identify support needs or course correction. At the same time, don't forget to celebrate achievements. You can find a template for a work plan in the planning section of this module. In the end, what is most important is to speak with your mentee about what works for them. Some people prefer a daily check in, while others might prefer more independence and only want to check in once a week. Some want lots of gentle guidance, while some might want lots of constructive feedback and may find too much guidance disempowering. Through this training, you have likely already thought about what you have personally experienced as effective or ineffective mentorship. It's worth asking yourself if it was objectively bad mentorship or if it didn't work for you because of a mismatch between the guidance you preferred and the guidance you received, and a missed opportunity to communicate about these preferences. In this module, you learn to build inclusive mentoring environments, develop trust, provide feedback using the SBI model, and set up structures to create an inclusive learning environment. Join us in the next module to learn about culturally responsive mentoring. Thank you for joining me in exploring and reflecting on inclusive mentoring through these videos. You've reached the end of the module. However, there are many more valuable lessons to engage with. True learning happens when you actively explore and analyze information, reflect on what you've learned, and apply it in practice. If you haven't already, we encourage you to continue with the other lessons in this module, including the mentor vignette exploration, where you can examine and analyze potential mentoring scenarios, the apply what you have learned lesson, where you'll describe how you would respond to a mentoring situation, and the planning lesson, where you can develop and implement plans for your own upcoming mentoring. If you're interested in going deeper, be sure to check out the readings and diving deeper resources for additional insights into this topic.